Well, what's up, Buttercups? My name's David, and welcome to Fun Ahead TV. Behind me, you can see my 2001 Porsche 911 Carrera 4, now Carrera 2 because of the conversion that we did, and it is basically a Carrera 4 / actually asterisk 2S, because earlier this year, we converted that engine from being 3.4 liters up to 3.8 liters, along with doing a bunch of other stuff to beef up the internals of this engine, making it the beefiest M96 powered 911 on the planet. Since beefing up the entire engine and bumming up the displacement, we have put just over 1,300 break-in miles on it, all of which have been flawless, all of which have been super fun, because this thing's power output is so much higher compared to what it once was in stock form. But the break-in mileage fun is over, folks. What do I mean by that? Well, it is officially time to put Project Beef, aka the beefiest M96 engine in the world, to the test, because this weekend is the very first track weekend that we are going to be doing with this vehicle in its current form. And I could not be more thrilled. Am I nervous? Yes, absolutely. This is gonna be the first time that we're pushing this engine consistently, very hard, 2.5 hours per day for 2 days. That's a lot of full out, red line, ripping and tearing time out on the track.
The ripping and the tearing.
So in just a little bit here, you are going to see exactly how those runs are going to go, because right now this is filmed before the track weekend. I have no idea how they're going to go. But first, before we do that, we need to convert this vehicle from being in street form, as it is now, to being in track form, which means, well, several hours of work. We got to do quite a few things just to get this thing ready to go, completely track worthy, so that we can beat the snot out of it for 5 hours on track this weekend. So thank you so much for tuning into Fun Ahead TV. Let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we?
Ripping and tearing. The ripping and the tearing.
Now in my case for track day prep, I'm gonna have to do quite a few things because, like I said, it is in street mode currently. I'll go over more specifically what that means in just a second as far as converting it into track mode. But first and foremost, with regards to track driving, safety is number one. And it all starts with, well, obviously your driving skills and your awareness out on track. But before all of that, you need to make sure that your car is in good running order. Especially if you drive it regularly on the street and you haven't been under it for a while, you never know. Things could change, things could fail. You don't just want to go driving it straight from the street out onto the track. Who knows what could happen? So therefore, the very first thing that we're going to do is just an inspection. The main things that I'm looking for is things with regards to the linkages, ball joints, bearings, bushings. We're gonna check, do the vertical check, make sure that our wheel bearings feel good, and then do the spin check. Okay, that feels good. We're gonna do the sideways check to make sure our tie rod ends aren't failing. We're gonna pry around on the lower ball joint to make sure that there's no play with regards to that. Check all of the boots for ball joints. Obviously, brakes are another thing that you should check. However, in my case, I'm not going to check these particular pads because we're going to swap over to the track pads that I have. That is going to be part of our track prep. But if you plan to run the pads that you normally drive on the street, directly on the track, make sure that you've got plenty of pad life left. While you're inspecting your pads, make sure your calipers look okay as well. Make sure things like your caliper seals aren't leaking. You don't want any amount of brake fluid coming out because that's only going to get exaggerated and turn into a terrible situation on track. We'll talk more in depth about brakes in just a little bit because we're also going to be bleeding the brakes, another very critical component of track prep. And lastly, on the note of inspection, check all of your fluids. Make sure that your engine oil, your transmission fluid or gear oil, your brake fluid, your power steering fluid, your coolant, all of that is at a proper level. And then also double check to make sure that you don't have any leaks under your car. Again, because of the high heat that can be seen on track and the high stress that's put on every single part while you're on track, it can only exaggerate a fluid leak and make it worse. And the last thing you want, again, is to be pouring a bunch of fluid onto the track surface. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with the actual inspection, just know that it is a very critical component. Let's move on to brake stuff. Okay, well, next up, as you can see, I have the oil draining out of the engine. We have to pull out the oil that I would typically run on the street, and we're going to swap in race oil. More on that in just a little bit. But while that's draining, we're gonna go ahead and pop the wheels off because we need to swap out our brake pads. I always utilize racing brake pads whenever I'm on the track. While that might seem like a load of bullcrap if you've never done a track weekend, believe you me, no, yeah, they're 1,000% worth it. While they're extremely expensive to put racing pads on all four corners of your car, They last a long time and they make the track weekend experience so much better in a lot of ways. First of all, street pads have a lot in their compounds to keep the pads quiet so that, you know, your luxury car isn't pulling up to a stoplight going in a super loud fashion with a bunch of people sitting out on a patio eating dinner. That's embarrassing. But when you swap over to race pads, oh my gosh. If you're looking for a good way to pop your eyes out of the front of your skull, invest in some race pads, because when you hit the brakes for the first time with those things, it is like it is absolutely crazy the difference that they make. And they do have to be warmed up. Usually it takes about a lap or so to get those things up to temperature to where they can actually do the biting force that they're you know, intended to do. Which is another reason why they're not great for the street. When you jump in your cold car and go cruising down the road, the first stop up to that stop sign is not going to be very good. But once you get some heat in them, oh my gosh, they are absolutely game changing. The other thing about street pads is, well, they can't handle the heat of lap after lap after lap. That is a lot to ask for street pads. So again, believe me, invest in some track pads. It's absolutely worth it. So fortunately, Porsche brakes are very easy to do pads on, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. I'm not gonna go over the step-by-step of how to do that. I've made videos on how to do that, so if you wanna see that, go check those videos out. But just know, as part of the process for track prep, we're swapping out brake pads. All right, folks, now it is time to put oil back in this bad girl after draining it, which means it is time to talk about today's video sponsor, and that is Redline Oil, of course. Now, I am very excited to utilize this particular oil because I've never actually used race oil before. All the track weekends I've done in the past, I've just utilized regular Redline street oil, and it's worked great. No problems here. However, because this is my brand new engine and I really want to protect it, Ellen Engineering themselves say if you're on track, only run race oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and follow their instructions and say, we're using race oil. The main difference between race oils and street oils is that street oils have a lot of detergents in them to keep your engine clean over thousands and thousands of miles while it runs. Unfortunately, those detergents don't bode so well when it comes to excessive heat over an extended amount of time in the situation of being on track. Race oil does not have those detergents, but it does have higher amounts of friction additives like ZDDP to protect your engine, and it holds up to heat much better. So this is the 50 weight race oil that Redline makes. They make a lot of other weights of race oil, and they also make fantastic street oils. Plus, they make literally any kind of automotive fluid, from power steering fluid to coolant to brake fluid to gear oil to ATF. You name it, they've got it. So do me a favor, go check out their website and pick yourself up some Redline product. I guarantee you, you'll enjoy it, and it will do a great job doing whatever that fluid's function is in your car. So I've always run 5W50 weight oil in this engine. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and run the 50 weight race oil in this engine. Let's go ahead and get to adding it. Check this out. It's like green. That is, ooh, and it smells good too. Oh, I just feel like the engine's already better protected and I've only put 1 quart in the thing. It needs 11. So, all right, I'm gonna get to adding those other 10 quarts and we'll pick up when it comes to the next track prep process. Next up, we are going to go ahead and bleed the brakes. Now this is very critical for track days. You don't want to let much time pass between brake bleeds if you're doing track weekends. So even if you did it somewhat recently, it's not a bad idea to just go ahead and do a fresh bleed right before doing whatever track weekend you're about to do. Reason being, in the event that you have any amount of moisture in your brake fluid, which brake fluid is a hygroscopic fluid, so it pulls in water. Therefore, if you heat up your brake fluid, you effectively boil that water in the brake line, and then that turns to a vapor, and then you have gas in a hydraulic line. That's a very bad thing and extremely unsafe in a track environment, obviously. So go to the extra effort, just go ahead, bleed your brakes. That way you know you're starting with fresh fluid for a track weekend. Now, I've also done videos on how to do this. If you want to see that procedure, go ahead and check those videos out. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and knock this out. And then I think, aside from a test drive, I think we're gonna be good to go. Well, here we are, leaving day, the day that we are going to head from my house in Ohio out to Indianapolis, well, just west of Indianapolis, to Putnam Park. And the 911, as you can see, is sitting here looking pretty. It is completely ready to go after yesterday's preparation activities. I did a first drive on it last night with the brand new Redline racing oil. Let me just say right off the bat, it is so impressive how well that stuff holds viscosity at higher temperatures. Now, you Porsche guys who have had a 996 before, I'm sure you have been quite prone to watch the oil pressure gauge to make sure that your oil pressure is staying within reason. Once your engine warms up, of course, you start to see less and less oil pressure. With this oil, keep in mind it's the same 50 weight oil, even once the coolant was up to operating temperature, I was seeing much more oil pressure than what I normally do with street oil. That bodes very well for the extended periods of high heat that we'll be seeing on the track this weekend. So with bushings, brakes, ball joints, and bearings all checked and passed inspection, fluids are checked, topped up, and good to go as well, I would say this thing is ready to rip. Now, like I said, this thing only has just over 1,300 miles on the engine. Does that mean it's still technically kind of in the break-in period because it's such a brand new engine? Yes, it does, but I think I've done a sufficient job breaking it in up until now. I'm sure we'll still see, you know, some maybe slightly elevated levels of metal from this oil after this weekend. I think honestly that's understandable, to be expected, given the fact that this engine is so fresh and so many components are brand new in it. So it is what it is at this point, which means it is now time to get this thing loaded up into our trailer so that we can take off in just a little bit here. But speaking of, let me go ahead and show you the tow rig for the weekend. Here it is, everybody. This is a Chevy Silverado 2500 heavy duty with the 6.6 liter turbocharged V8 Duramax diesel engine. It is an absolute hoss. Now, of course, as you longtime viewers know, I would normally be utilizing my Land Cruiser for this particular application to tow the trailer, which I have done before going to Putnam Park. However, I just finished a bunch of work on the Land Cruiser, so I'm still kind of vetting that out, and I literally just finished it yesterday. Additionally, while the Land Cruiser has done this 3-hour drive to Putnam Park and back before, and it does a fine job doing it, honestly, I would rather utilize a truck that's a little more capable to tow such a big trailer. Again, the Land Cruiser can do it, but it is literally at its capacity when it's towing this trailer with a car in it. So I'm more comfortable towing like an hour away from my house with the Land Cruiser at full capacity, but when it's 3 hours away, I will do it if I need to. My father-in-law owns this truck and I have access to it and he's willing to let me borrow it. So I am super duper psyched to tow with this truck. I think it is honestly going to be a dream. The combined weight of this trailer is literally like a third of this truck's towing capacity. And the torque number that this engine can make, 975 foot-pounds. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's going to feel like nothing is back there when this trailer is fully loaded up. So anyway, all right, I gotta shut up. I'm gonna stop geeking over this truck. We'll get on our way to Putnam Park. So much time and effort and energy and money has gone into this car, and I am genuinely nervous to see how this goes. Hey everyone, just a quick reminder, super high quality Fun Ahead TV merch is available on funaheadtv.com right now. So head on over to funaheadtv.com and get yourself some today. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Also, thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see even more great Fun Ahead TV content, please click the link right here. I'll see you over there.
Ripping, tearing,